Conversation just recently with someone who, and made a very good point. You know, the person was talking with me about some of the same things that you're speaking of too, and said, well, listen, why do black folks so boldly says Cajun, and when they want to speak to the issue of why the word nigger is derogatory, we don't want to say nigger, we want to say the N word.
Oh, yeah.
We say we want to say the N word because, you know, if, and the person was making a point, and I concur 100%. If nigger and Cajun mean the same, and they're both historically derogatory terms, then why is it that you boldly can say Cajun, but you don't want to say nigger, to explain the point in terms of what nigger is all about?
We on live for the other show. We can start the second show.
Okay.
Yeah, we started the other show, then live. So I'll come to you. Y'all ready?
Mm-hmm. We're going to go over that point too. You know, in New Orleans, you know, as we spoke of that, you know, the connotation of the word Creole and Cajun and nigger, they bombard us with niggers here, with the word Cajun here.
Yes.
And they want to use the N word as though it's all that and bad, and you know, but Cajun and nigger mean the same, but they make us think that they have a sense of respect for us by saying, don't say the word nigger, say N word. But we boldly say Cajun and we label ourselves Cajun. In New Orleans, I lived there, as you know, for about 5 years. New Orleans is inundated with the Creole concept. Not knowing and not understanding fully the impact of New Orleans' political system and social system until I got there, that there's a distinct difference between many lighter-skinned blacks and dark-skinned blacks in terms of how well and how mobile they can be within the city. And I know it's probably a little better now, but still the concept of Creole is being jammed down black people. Now, indigenous black folks, conscientious black folks, is rejecting that. Why is it that we feel we need to have a substitute term to identify our beautiful black and African self? One thing I like in your book, you made very clear that regardless of what you say, what you go, where you go, what you do, you're going to still find out that black folks are the original people of the earth.
Right.
So anything else that you might want to call yourself, if you defined it historically and culturally long enough, you'll find out that it's a remnant of something black.
Yes.
And it came from blackness. So here we are bombarded with the concept of Cajun and labeling everything and everybody's Cajun. Black folks' accomplishment, black folks' history, black culture, and many of us go along with it because we assimilate not knowing the history. You know what I've come to learn, though, Brother West, is that many of us either don't understand or we refuse to dissect the real meaning of the words colonialism, imperialism, cultural genocide. You know, those are powerful words. And when you begin to understand and dissect what colonialism is, as long as we don't break the chains of colonialism, wherever it is, you know, that is the food for white supremacy, we will never be able to act out of the context of who we are. Now, I know in your book, you make mention of some things, and I want to, because it's all the same, and I want to be able to make sure that at least we get some other points out there, because we're going to come back and we're going to tie into it. You made a statement in your book about religion. You stated that religion has a double-bladed sword for black people.
Sword, yeah.
That's right, double-bladed sword for black people. Elaborate on that point for a few minutes.
Well, religion is double-bladed from the simple reasons is we created it. We started it. That's the one edge. the other edge is that it is being constantly used against us. We have not been given credit for creating it. In fact, Catholics would have you believe that the Jews and the Greeks and Romans were the ones that created Jesus Christ and Christianity. But they will not tell you, the Catholics will not tell you that the first church, the first Christian church, the universal church, was in Mesopotamia. And from top to bottom and everything in between was all black.
That's right.
In fact, I play with Baptists a lot because I'll ask them, what was the first mission of the missionary church? And of course they don't know. And if they knew, they wouldn't tell you.
Yes, sir. I want to take this time now to invite the callers to call in. The lines are open now. We certainly would welcome your call. Get involved. You have any questions or comment? Please call. I think the number is going to appear on the screen in a minute. Please call. Get involved and ask your question. Brother West, I'm taking you all these places, and I hope you don't mind because, like I said, I want people to have at least an idea what are some of the subject matters that you are tackling in your book. As obviously we can't cover everything in detail, but I want to go through these different areas so that they would get an idea of the sustenance that you are addressing in your book. One of the areas that you cover that I find to be quite interesting and certainly valid for us to discuss now is that you broke down the evil concepts of the Willie Lynch's letter and how those concepts seem to have impacted black people today and are still in use. How do you see those concepts affecting the black man, the black woman, the black family, and ultimately black existence from your perspective?
Well, first of all, there's been a lot of controversy about the Willie Lynch letters, and they have finally, I guess, rested upon the saying that it was a hoax, that the Willie Lynch letters was created by someone in modern times, and they were just using that to demonstrate how severely we were treated. But if you look at the Willie Lynch letters for what you have, everything in there is basically fact. We were treated that way. I mean, all of the things that is mentioned in the Willie Lynch letter actually happened.
Yes, sir.
So if that's the case, and the only thing that is really fabricated is that it was a white boy that was on an island and brought the other ones together and told them, this is how you tame a slave. This is how you program a slave. Then we need to understand that what happened to us then is continuing to happen to us today. And there's in psychology and psychiatry, there have been studies that prove this out. Many I've mentioned in the book. Now, when we deal with the Willie Lynch letters, I gave an example of modern day phenomena that creates the same end. And that was with the wealthy Patty Hearst.
That's right.
From the Hearst fortunes. Patty Hearst joined the Black Panther Party. No, excuse me. Patty Hearst claims that she was kidnapped. She was held captive and was brainwashed by her captives to go into a bank and rob the bank. They came up with a term for her, which is called the Stockholm Syndrome, which is a thing that actually happened in Stockholm, Sweden, where someone went into a bank to rob the bank, held the people captive, and they impressed upon their captors so much, they scared them to death to the point that the captors was protecting the people that kidnapped them. That's what they used in Patty Hearst's defense to get her off from murder and bank robbery. Now, she served a little time, not much at all. She was found guilty of lesser charges. But the bottom line is they went ahead and they said that Patty Hearst did not willfully do this, that she was under duress when it happened. If that is the case, why is it and how is it black folks are not under duress? Because we have never, ever.
Let me take this caller. Caller, you're on the air. You have a comment or question?
I'd like to make a comment. Sorry, I would like to say this is a very informative program that is on the night of football fans. But however, I would say that it is a beautiful, beautiful thing to bring such subjects up, especially for our citizens, because that is our children today to the that know what the Holocaust really cost this world, what it has done for us in this world. I would like to say, when we purchased the book, the to get the Black I Am, Cajun I'm Not Good, and
Caller, I'm not sure whether it's on our end or your end, but you're breaking up on this end. We're not hearing you clearly. If you are not finished with your comment, could you hang up and maybe try back, call back? Thank you.
we will do that. Thank you very much for watching.
Thank you. You're not coming in clearly. You're breaking up.
Or getting more knowledge about this book, The Original Holocaust.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Much.
Thank you. We were talking about the Willie Lynch syndrome. You know, the full extent of the teachings and Let's Make a Slave, they suggest some very strong psychological damage has been done to the woman and the men, which have affected the fact. I want you to talk and elaborate on that a little bit. Caller, you on the air. Comment or question?
Yes, I have a comment. Thank y'all so very much. A very powerful program. I have a two-part question.
Yes.
My first part would be directed to Brother West. Brother West, in your book, Our Story, The Original Holocaust, you spoke about the Willie Lynch letter. I would like to know, do you actually believe that is factual or mythology with the Willie Lynch letter? And Brother Takuna, dealing with Cajun I am, Creole I'm not, Black I am, the taking the knee that Kaepernick done on behalf of the injustice that's dealing in the football arena. Do you think that I'm not into the football at all, but do you think that we can continue with his legacy, being that he is standing the test of time, sir?
Yes, I'll let Brother West respond to the question
Well,
first.
to your question, yes, the Willie Lynch letter is factual, and I was talking earlier, I used the comparison to Patty Hearst and her trials in which he claimed happened to her. Same thing with the Willie Lynch letter. If we look at the fact that now, today, PTSD is something that is recognized as being a sickness, an illness, then when are we going to start getting treatment? And I say we, I'm talking about black folk, for PTSD after 400 years of slavery. after 100 years of Jim Crowism, after the current status of Donald Trumpism. When are we going to start receiving some kind of help that's going to help us to cope with the things we've had to go through all of these years?
Caller, to answer your question, if I understand it fully and completely, my support for Kaepernick comes from the fact that he had the mere courage and strength to stand up for what he believed in. See, what is missing in the black community, oftentimes we stand for things when there's nothing to lose. Sometimes we stand for things when we have a certain level of support that comes from the European community that says it's okay. So we get our courage from that. Kaepernick had millions of dollars to lose, and he stood for a principle. They tried to make it out about the flag, but he was talking about the brutality and the unjust treatment and the killing of young black men. And that as a black man, you know, he took exceptions to that and done something. I wish more of our athletes and our entertainers would be as brave and be as bold. I know that LeBron James has stepped out and have said some things. You have some of these athletes in the past who have done some things and they've been buried by the system. You don't hear anything of them. Kaepernick, I believe, with time, will be recognized and, you know, for his strength and for his courage. And certainly we should support not only Kaepernick, but we should support the strength and the image in which he's trying to set, you know, for us. You may not agree with everything that he does. You may not agree with everything that he's about. You know, we may not agree with everything what Dr. King stood for and what he said and how he said it. But one thing we cannot disagree on is the fact that whatever Dr. King believed, and we just celebrated his anniversary, we cannot dispute the fact that he was willing to die for what he believed. You know, he was willing to demonstrate, you know, even to the point of death, that this is the principles that he believed in. The problem with Dr. King, just like a problem with a lot of our young men and women who stand up, is the fact that you've hinted toward it earlier. Everything that we do that's good, white folks first condemn, then they molest it, then they come up with something else, a version of it. So Dr. King, from 55 to the first part of 65, is a different Dr. King from the middle part of 65 to 68.
Right.
So white folks will not teach you the truth about Dr. King. They will not tell you the truth about Kaepernick and the reason why he stood up. They want to create a smokescreen and make it about a flag, you know, but the principles in which he stands for, the principles in which he knelt for, I support. Yes. You know, I support. And I support any athletes. I only wish one day that there'll be one or two brave black brother and sister right here in Lafayette who would stand up at UL on the football field or basketball court or the baseball field or track field and say, I will not play if you call me Cajun. You see, on the principle of understanding the negativity and the danger of submitting and capitulating to colonialism.
Another thing that they have to remember, excuse me, what happened to Kaepernick, what has happened to King, what has happened to Malcolm, what has happened to all of the heroes and sheroes that are one way or another gunned down or taken out of their positions. Yes, they're taken out of those positions because they dare speak up.
Sure.
But more importantly, what happens to them is to show others not to follow in their footsteps.
Modern day buck breaking.
That's right. And we have to realize if this is what whites do not want, that's what we should be pouring down their throats.
And you know, I asked you about the Willie Lynch's teaching, and part of that is the understanding of the psychological games that they actually introduce in order to achieve the results that you just described. And it's called modern day bug breaking. But in the Willie Lynch's teachings, How to Make a Slave as well, you would see is that it's described as that the most aggressive, the most outspoken, the most fearless black man on the plantation was brutalized, killed, and maimed in front of the women and the young in order to set an example. There's a phrase that goes around in the circle of consciousness when you deal with people and that understand what we're talking about. There's often a phrase that we understand that white folks have adapted many years ago and said, "What's the best way to control a nigger?" Say, control him before he's born. And so they go after the woman. They create a psychological dilemma in the woman's mind and understanding. They upset her psychological state and her reaction to her man, to society, to herself. And they put her in a situation where when they get through with the process of breaking her psychological and dependence on her man, they then make her, they upset the apple cart and they make her absorb the psychological responsibility and the social responsibility that ordinarily the man or her mate would be carrying. Let's take this call. Caller, you're on the air. You have a comment or question?
Yes, great show tonight, Brother Kakuna.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Great to see Brother West in the studio.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Where do I start, Brother Kakuna? I brought something up to you. You said maybe Brother West could be more clear or get his perspective on
Yes.
the issue. And I brought up the other day about so much classism in the black community. And I want to specifically focus on the black community.
Yes, sir.
Because our classism is different. Our people seem to not understand we all come from the same place. We all have made it off the backs of people before us. And they seem, once they get up out that hole they come from, or that trench, or whatever they like to say, they seem to forget where they come from. And classism is a big thing in the black community that's holding us back from achieving certain goals for the black community. So I want you to touch on that. And one other issue is what the sister brought up about the NFL. People don't understand that the move with Donald Trump is not necessarily the problem. It's his enablers. We got a lot of enablers here in the city of Lafayette that pull for Donald Trump mentality. We got a lot of enablers in New Orleans. We got a lot of New Orleans Saints fans who are enablers of the Donald Trump mentality. I'm saying that. We got a lot of people in America who are enablers of the Donald Trump mentality. Donald Trump could have not exist in a vacuum. He had to be put there. And people don't understand that whole NFL symbolism thing, because he spoke today. Trump spoke today about the NFL. One of the things he required those players to respect the American flag and to respect the soldiers and all. These two things are symbolism things. The American flag symbolized white supremacy here. The service members symbolize the power behind the white supremacy. So we don't understand that as black folks. I'd like to get your analysis on that, Brother Takuna and Brother West. Thank you so much.
Well, mine is going to be brief, and I'm going to let Brother West answer, because I know he's going to be more in detail. But I just want to bring to the surface the point that you're making. Just before coming here, I watched the beginning of the game because I wanted to see just how they were going to conduct themselves. It was disappointing to see that Gladys Knight sang the Black National Anthem. Then white folks went ahead and they sought out two, I think, culturally and historically disconnected, beautiful young black girls, to black women to sing America the Beautiful. How insulting. How insulting that is to black people. How can you be in America, be black, sing America the Beautiful, and sing the Black National Anthem, in this particular climate with Trump, and not understanding the third verse of the national anthem pretty much says, you know, we got you enslaved, we're gonna keep you enslaved, and if you
Right.
try to get out, we're gonna bomb you.
Yeah.
You know, so how disconnected we are from history and culture. And I love Gladys Knight. And I must say, I lost a lot of respect for her because it's another icon that has been set up to be to be damaged in the minds of much of the conscious community, you know, the conscious black community. And you could see what they're doing. They want to sell the idea, hey, there's a few rebel rousers that are upset about this. Black people love us. Black people love America. Black people are unaware or is aware, but there are more important things. And this is what I spoke to in the beginning of the show when I spoke to black defectors. I found that it is very difficult to move forward on any positive agenda because black folks have always been used to serve as an alternative to self-determination and strength. White folks seeks us out. And they either get us with monies, they either get us with promises of political favors or political positions. There's some self-serving agenda that we actually, you know, pursue. The same thing with the rappers. We talk about the word nigger. We talk about this, but white folks, mostly Jews, on the music industry. They give our young people millions of dollars to sing songs with the word nigger and call our women out of their names and disgrace, you know, the black family. So money has been the motivation. And when you tell some of our brothers who are uninitiated to a proper sense of history and culture, they say, well, hey man, you know, I'm getting mines, you know, I'm making millions. You know, what do you have? But those who perpetuate this kind of behavior among black people already know, no matter how many millions you get with that kind of thinking, it's just a matter of time. We're going to have it all. We're going to have it all back.
Oh, yeah. There's no question to that. In response to the question that he raised about classism, let me say this to you, my brother. Classism was created, it's maintained by the three major religious philosophies in the world: Judaism, Catholicism, and Christianity. And when I say Christianity, you have to understand Christianity is essentially the same as Islam, but it's culturally different. So we have religion teaching and preaching classism. So how do you get away from classism if you're embracing your religion? How do you get away from the ills? Because Christianity was the authority for enslaving the blacks from Africa. Sure. Islam finds slavery is something that they give a person as a option to death. If you'll be my slave, then I'll let you live. Mm-hmm. So we have to realize and understand we are upholding and maintaining the tenets of slavery and classism or classism, because classism and slavery are basically the same things. And I used to talk about the similarities between communism, capitalism, and socialism. All three are basically the same.
That's right.
The differences are this. General Motors manufactures the Chevrolet, the Buick, and the Cadillac. Now, when you look at Chevrolet, Buick, and Cadillac, you're looking at classism. All owned by General Motors. Mm-hmm. Socialism, capitalism, and communism is all controlled by white supremacy. So, if you pick one or the other, you're still upholding white supremacy. So how are we going to get past all of this if we keep embracing them and holding them close to our chest so they don't slip away. We have to stand up as blacks and say, we've had it all, it's not worked, we need to go back to something we know that does work. And when we do that, we have to go back to, as I said in the other show, the point in time of creation, which is far past the period of Kemet.
That's right.
Because Kemet taught and promoted classism. Kemet was a higher form of society because of their institutions of knowledge and education. Kemet was the center of masonry, still is. In my book, I talk about a lot about masonry. And one of the things I talk about is how could a Prince Hall Mason, which for those of you that are Masonically astute, you know that Prince Hall Masons are black Masons.
That's right.
How can a black lodge or group of members petition a white lodge for legitimacy and so that they can exist? How do they do that? When the white Masons got everything they know, got it from black folks out of Kemet. So we keep giving white people the power to enslave us.
That's right.
And until we cut the umbilical cord, we're going to continue to be slaves.
I want to go back in the area because you said some very significant things as far as politics and voting that I find quite interesting. What does it mean to be politically active in your point of view? And I want to be a two-part question because I want you to talk and let us know more about what is the 1 million conscious black voters and contributors all about. Is that, I'm suggesting, but I want you to clarify, for me. Is that a new political apparatus as that black folks should be aware of, a strategy? My viewpoint is this: we need politics. We just don't need the current kind of politics that we have. We need politics of the people of our community. We need to establish a political independent source, a stream that will be a power of influence, because white folks will never let you be part of their system and you have raw power. But we can have indirect power, meaning influencing whatever political apparatus that may be making decisions for our community, but we can have direct power in our community if we take on a different political strategy. Explain to me, what is your political view in terms of that, and what is your involvement with the 1 million conscious black voters, and what's all that about?
When I was introduced to the 1 million conscious black voters and contributors in, I think it was 2015, I was astounded with it, and I immediately became a part of it. It was an alternative to the current day politics, and in my view, had the 1 million maintained the direction that it started out with, would have been the watershed for blacks in America today in lieu of Trumpism. Trump actually opened the door, and there were people, there were black folks that were, joining, calling, and trying to find out what we were all about in 2015, 2016. But somewhere along the way, the 1 million got sidetracked, and as the dean of of the state representatives, I was pushing for political knowledge and power. Go
Let
ahead.
me take that call. Caller, you on there? You got a question or comment?
Yes, I have a comment. Dr. Jones used to state that any type of atrocities that exist came from the Catholic Church. What are y'all comment on the number of rapes that the Catholic diocese all over the world has engaged in, and the type of slap on the wrist that they're doing when it comes down to the raping of the young people at that particular time?
Yes, and thank you for the question, sister. It's a very on-time question. Let me say this to you and the listeners, that you have to understand something. You can't understand what's going on with the child molestation until you understand the structure of the church.
That's right.
The Catholic Church, at its core, its foundation, has rituals that involve sexual rape and molestation of young children. And that is something that people do not want to accept, but it's true. And they get it from the Judaism that the white Jews practice. So we have to understand that with all of these revelations about the priests and covering up, and they just sweep it under the rug, and we continue to go on, and you'll have a priest or you'll have a cardinal or a bishop come out and say that we are moving in a direction to wipe this out, to clean it up, to do whatever we have to do to keep you contributing to the church, when they know there is no way under this earth that anything's going to change, because it is part of their belief system. How are you going to eradicate it if it's something that they honestly believe in? So we have to open that up and talk about that.
Caller, you on the air? Question or comment?
Yes, look, comment. Good evening, Brother Takuna and
Good evening, sir.
Brother West.
Good evening.
Hey, look here. You guys are having a very enlightening program. I wish more people wasn't into these the games than they are, and should be listening and checking this program out. You know, you call it the original Holocaust. I call it the original apartheid that we had in the United States.
Yes.
You know, because of the miseducation. For many years, you know, here in South Louisiana, all they played was Dr. King's speech, I Had a Dream, you know, and they played it so much they just wiped out a lot of people's mind other than Dr. King's original speech, you know. I've also read where these colleges, all these big colleges, Yale, Harvard, and all of that, was created to keep us in slavery. And long as they're keeping us in slavery, even the historical black college that we had here, the people that was teaching the blacks in college got their education from the whites. So all this here is keeping us into Nanny Tom, Uncle Tom, and seem like once, like you guys say, once these guys get in office, they go to the other side. They don't stay to the side that help them get in office. And I'm talking about the blacks that's in office. I heard this Joey Durrell say, for 200 years we had control over our city. The last 50 years, we lost control over our city. So all that told me we're in our 50th anniversary of the civil rights movement. And guess what? We had a lot of nanny toms went with them to disrupt our community, disrupt our city, and what it should be. And again, you guys, thank y'all for all that y'all doing right now as far as bringing light to the people that need to hear this. Thank you, guys.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome,
sir. Thank
brother.
you for calling.
Thank you for calling.
But
Yeah.
what I want to say just briefly to to the caller, that's an acknowledgement that we hear over and over and over
Yes.
again. The question is, what do we intend to do about it? What my frustration level actually is tested is when we know of these individuals, yet when we have the opportunity to bring penalty to them for being disloyal to us, then we fall short on that because it's a cousin, it's a friend, or I might get a few dollars, or I might get a position if this person do this or do that politically. But the caller is correct in his assessment. The question is, what as a community should we be doing? Look, when you see me walk in this community, most people see two things when they see me. They see the name change man and the Cajun issue man. Now, Brother West, I would bet that the same issues exist in New Orleans, anywhere we go on the face of the earth in the black community. The basis of your culture and history is the foundation in which you must build on if you're going to emerge from that building as a black and African person. So anybody who can control the foundation of your history and culture, your understanding of it, controls your economics, controls your social setup, controls where you live, how comfortable you are, and who you're comfortable with. So the foundation of self is the foundation in which that must be solidly built into a proper knowledge and acceptance of self. We have individuals that we make reference to as leaders that do not have that foundation. Yet we don't want to do the hard job because we don't want to lose nothing. Look, I get people in the community that tells me all the time about, man, I really appreciate the book. I really appreciate, the things you say in the book. And I see them not even be able to resist going to the nigger dome for a basketball game or for a football game. You see, then we go into Popeyes and we buy Cajun or biscuits and Cajun fries and Cajun chicken and all this other stuff, and I always make the reference. You think white folks would be so foolish if they knew and if they exercised the idea that, hey, nigger and Cajun mean the same, and we're gonna let black folks, create restaurants and create businesses and have all of this Cajun thing work synonymous with the word nigger? And you think white folks would walk into a restaurant or send their little white child to a school called Home of the Raging Cajuns or Raging Niggers? They wouldn't buy no nigger biscuit. They wouldn't buy no nigger fries. They wouldn't have their little white children walking around with no Raging Nigger t-shirts. You see, so the concept is that white folks are employing is the fact that this is a litmus test. If we can take their culture and history, brand their children, take all of their history and historical accomplishment and bring it under our history, we got them. We ain't worried about them. So the challenge then becomes, when we know these people are less than brave in standing up for what they know is true, what is it that we must do about it? You see, that's the question, and that's what must be answered.
Well, I always answer with the same word. We need to find discipline. We have to discipline ourselves, our families, our community, and we have to continue with discipline. We have to continue with educating ourselves. And I don't mean the education that white folks are giving us. We have to be able to go beyond that.
Certainly.
Because if we stay shallow in that shallow water that they are feeding us, the caller mentioned about the universities, HBCUs.
Sure.
It's unfortunate that we have HBCUs that are always complaining about not knowing if they're going to exist from one year to the next because they don't know whether they're going to get funded. But if we go back to the beginning of HBCUs. We funded ourselves. We found the monies through hard work so we could build and maintain our educational systems.
That's right.
We don't even think about that today. When we have more resources today to work with than we had then. Then you mentioned about controlling our destiny. We have, and I'm speaking broadly of black folks, most black folks have no idea what control of destiny is. And if you have no idea what it is, how can you begin to do it? We are too busy taking care of white folk, keeping white people in charge, as opposed to learning how to be in charge ourselves.
That's right.
And until, I have people, they read my book and they say, oh, brother, I really appreciate it. It was a heck of a book, bro. I said, okay, fine. Now, what part of that are you going to take to move to the next level? Mm-hmm. Because what I did was take things that was given to me and move them to the next level.
That's right.
So now it's incumbent upon the rest of the people to move to their next level. And you can't do it following behind white folks, doing the things that white folks have given you to do. You can't do it. Mm-hmm. You have to divorce yourself, if you will, from all of the antidotes that white folks have instilled in you. Mm-hmm. And they were instilled in us to keep us safe and to keep us non-threatening.
Well, certainly, we've been socially engineered into what everything we believe and think. You mentioned, we were talking about the Catholic Church earlier. One of the most controlling institutions in our community that prevents cohesiveness on many other issues is, as you know, those different religious denominational fights that we have. But the Catholic Church has a unique crippling effect on black people. The Catholic Church not only gives us half-truth and inconsistency in terms of what spirituality is, but the Catholic Church has an economic scheme in the black community that's vulgar and offensive when you understand it. The Catholic Church has a separate economic system that is controlled by the Catholic Church. So in other words, if you have 5 different black communities and they got a Catholic Church in those communities, monies that come from those communities that goes into the collection of the Catholic Church goes into one central fund of the Catholic Church that goes to the bishop, goes up in rank to the higher office, and control the funds there. It is the arbitrary decision of mostly white men that determine how much money needs to go back to these particular communities, regardless of how much is actually put into those communities. So there is no relationship between the spiritual development, the spiritual growth of black people in the Catholic Church tied to their economics. Now, regardless of who collects the money, the money still goes into a white bank on Monday morning. So we have that uniqueness that I think is vulgar and so devastating to the economic reality of black people. Look, in this area alone, we have a small school. I graduated from that school, an elementary school. The elementary school is right next to a large church, Immaculate Heart. And that church pull in thousands of dollars a week from the black community. The school, however, next to the church, which has been serving this community for many years, has closed because of a lack of funds, supposedly for a lack of $150,000. Now, the school closes, but black people put in thousands of dollars into the Catholic Church, and the funds from the Catholic Church cannot be used to support the school because it's 2 separate corporations. So the church squeezes out the school because they have needs and aspiration for a different use of that property or have no desire for the continuing education of black children in that area. Now, the lack of funds issue was on the table as to why the school closed. And because of our religious foolishness and faithfulness and blindness of the Catholic Church, many of us don't question that, and we allow no resistance to it. But in the same breath, there is $250,000 or more of a rectory that comes up right behind the school. You see? So the economics and the church and our relationship to God in the Catholic Church are strangers. You see, we just give, and there's no reciprocation that comes from the giving of the people that creates the finances for the church. It's not in control of the people. Now, the black churches that have a different setup where it goes to the pastors, you have a situation where monies are collected and they still put it in white folks' banks, and only a few heads of the church get a relationship with the bank. We still don't have an economic relationship. You're on the air, caller. Comment or question?
Don't forget the gift of our love of story for Mr. West. As well, I would like to say that I hope that every library will carry this book, Black I Am Cajun I'm Not, and our story about Holocaust. It is as important as the Jews or any other race that has been through this Holocaust.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sister, I appreciate that.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you. You know, I wanted to say that you're talking about the Catholic Church, and we in the 60s and 70s had a grip on the answer, and we turned it loose. Mm-hmm. What the Catholic Church is functioning on and why they are so strong is, first of all, it's not a religion. It is a nation. Mm-hmm. And what did we used to run around in the 60s and 70s holler? Nation time.
That's right.
And we didn't follow through with that.
That's right.
We have to understand that if we are not nationally conscious about putting together a nation, then we're wasting our time.
That's right.
The Catholic Church is probably has the biggest bank in the world. Mm-hmm. The Catholic Church has one of the largest membership in the world. Mm-hmm. And they run a business, they run a tight ship, and the reason the Catholic Church is able to do it better than anybody else is because they come in with their belief system. They convince you that their belief system is very similar to the one you have. They become culturally correct, and once they get that hook in you, then you have to bow down to Satan and you have to pay the piper, which means all that cultural that you had before, you'll never see it again.
All you got to do is give it to Jesus you never see.
That's right.
You give it to this spook concept of spirituality. And this is what's so difficult to combat in terms of organizing our people. I know many good brothers and sisters are completely right now, if they didn't fall out their chair, they're about to fall out their chair just based on this conversation, because their loyalty to the church and the lack of understanding in terms of where that comes from is the problem that we have when we try to organize our people. The whole concept of religion in itself, we don't know. That was denied those of us who were taken from the shores of Africa. Our ancestors were denied to practice any form of spirituality when they got to this country. Nothing affiliated with Africa. And for 270 years. After 270 years of brutal killing and beating of us, they still sensed that there was a strong sense of spirituality or a reverence to a creator that was greater than white folks. So white folks said, listen, we got to garnish this. We can't fight it anymore. We just got to let them do, but we got to paint the image in their mind in terms of who that God is or what spirituality is. And they took what we've been doing and they painted it white in our minds and in our hearts. So therefore, the whole of the not only the Catholic Church, but many of the so-called black churches that call themselves black and teaching a black doctrine, they're just taking a white European version and they just painted it over white. And they're speaking it from a black mouth.
Yeah.
You know, but it's still the same concept.
You know, if people doubt